Hello and welcome to the Think Tank, the BGSU Schmidt-Horst College of Business Nexus for Change Academy of Management sponsored event where we are celebrating and diving into human-centered change in an interactive way with our three illustrious presenters and scholar practitioners today. My name is Ryan Erickson. I'll be hosting the presentations. We'll have a 15-minute presentation from each of our esteemed guests. Then after that, we'll go into a breakout session, 3, 4, 5, how many of you will do that, where we'll dive into what has been shared by our presenters that's in the room for a while. Then after that, we will come back to the main room where you can ask questions either by raising your hand and speaking to the room as it is, asking a question in the chat where we'll read from there, and just kind of be an open space to engage with our, again, I keep saying our illustrious presenters. And take a breath and be here with you. So to start, I'm going to choose, who shall I choose? I will choose Todd Siler, the founder and president of ArtScience Productions and a Renaissance man, as has been introduced to us. And Todd, please take it away with your presentation and your sharing of your current thoughts about change in the world.
Okay, thank you so much, Ryan. Hi, all. And I'm a visual creature, so I will show some slides and talk through some of the images that you'll see and try to wrap an overview that my experience of organizational change, leadership, and so forth has been over the course of my exploration. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully I can do this very, very simply. And I can, let's see, I think you have everything set up here. See if it rolls and you can see it. You know, we live in a very, very complex time. This image, I happen to love it. It's a Pulitzer Prize winning cartoon by Bruce
We can't
Shank.
quite see the screen yet. Can everybody see the screen?
You can't see the screen? Hang on a second. I don't know why. Let's see. Document screen. Here it is. Sorry about that.
There we go.
Okay,
Perfect.
there you go. So here, I'm going to put this up and kind of give you a big picture. This political cartoon actually was created by Pulitzer Prize winning cartoon by Bruce Shanks, and I used it in a book that I will show you a little later. And it seems to describe sort of our world today. We're filled with all kinds of crises and things that, interestingly enough, this was created in 1953 when I was born. And it's something that I think of not simply as an individual, but think of what we're going through today in the world, the complexity of it and so forth. And the question I ask is around human-centered leadership is how we manage these things personally, as groups, and so forth. So I'm going to put some questions out that as we go here and say that, you know, for many people and cultures and citizenships, corporate citizenships, this has been the way that I have seen painted, described. I'm an artist and I use many, many different mediums to create artworks and use the art in my facilitated workshops that I do. But this is a big painting. And to me, I've always been interested in what happens from the inside out. All of my work and research is sort of from the human neuroscience side, because that's what fascinates me. I'm passionate about it. And, you know, I'm always trying to understand how we practice in our own way these change aspects in ourselves and lives and bring it into the companies and things we work with. And we try to do it in our own way to build that sense of trust and respect, independence, cooperation, collaboration. And that's what I want to address today. So just a little bit more about how I work, and I think it will play into the things I'm going to show you quickly, is for me, I have always been passionate about how we learn, create, discover, innovate, invent things, and communicate across many fields of knowledge. And my passion, again, is how looking at for the last 50 years, how's the brain connected to everything it creates? Now, how are creations connected to nature, and how does nature connect everything? And more specifically, that I think will be relevant to this group, is how do our affective and cognitive functions influence all our actions and behaviors? And this has been sort of my bailiwick in the area of my interests. And I always go to the heart of the brain. If that's an actual sagittal view of the human brain, looks sort of heart shape. And so I build installations, my art installations, to try to convey a moment of thinking, feeling, acting, doing. And when I make these artworks, in some sense, they're kind of human-centered artworks about how we do the things we do, and how we express ourselves and communicate that to the public. I won't spend, this could take hours to relate, but I just thought you might appreciate the scope and scale of these constructions, and have lots of material if anybody wants to actually read about and see why this, which was actually the visual component of my doctorate at MIT, it was really a symbolic model of neuropsychological processes, very much relevant to what we're talking about today. So one of the things I'm interested in is how we can use human-centered leadership and change to deal with the complexity of our world. And I must remind you, this diagram you're looking at was composed in 1996. And think about what has changed in that period of time. This, if you go to that link, you'll find it's part of a world-changing organization. But think about how we have to use the tools and skills we're trying to leverage here to address these, the complexity of this. These prioritized information were drafted from over 4,000 think tanks in the world to aggregate this. But just imagine how complex this is today if you were to add all the extra details and so forth. And I wanted to put it up there. So looking at this and thinking about how can we engage people to do what they do by birth naturally. You know, I do believe in democratizing creative, critical thinking, applying our wisdom and so forth. And I have had tons of evidence to show, evidence-based facts to show that indeed, you know, we can take this ability to understand that indeed genius thinking is everywhere, every day, and everyone in every way imaginable. We don't often have a chance to actually experience that unless somebody is guiding it and pointing it out to us. And if you look, just as an overview, our genes are genius, and what they do for a living and to enable us to live creatively and do what they do. And so this is about this four-step process I developed and actually worked on in when I would apply to inventing new technology with groups that are highly specialized in many different organizations. Oops, here, I'll go back to that slide just to show you very, very diverse sets of organizations I've worked with. So this is not just simply a theoretical approach. We applied it rigorously in many, many different ways. And in the process, that statement about how we can use our abilities to think, create, perform at our highest level is something that has absorbed my energies over, well, I would say the last 45 years intensely. And also recognizing, in fact, that the way that we are able to begin to identify all of the enormous, the human potential, unique potential in each of us and collectively as organizations is very, very important. And I'll skip I'll skip the science and details. Anybody interested in that, happy to load you up with all kinds of information. What I want to talk to you about today are a set of tools and process that evolved out of the work I started working on at the Center for Advanced Visual Studies at MIT, which grew into doing my doctoral work and working with other labs there. That was about this process I call metaforming, which is really using all information, knowledge, data, everything that under that rubric of information in a personally meaning, purposeful, and relevant way. And so in the course of that, in the course of testing it with kids, I would say kids from 5 all the way up to 105, kind of thing, that big bracket, and enabling people to actually give form to their ideas and thought processes. This way of using ordinary materials to give form to ideas and communicate and innovate things became a tool that is about experiential learning. It is about, appreciative inquiry. It is about what we call today transdisciplinary thinking and working across many, many fields and using the world of what I call metaforms, more than simply metaphor. And we can talk about that after, but to be brief, I'm just trying to give you some very basic definitions. And they involve basically all the connection-making tools and symbol-making systems we have developed, evolved over thousands of years, okay? Yes, it's arts-based, it's science-based, it's the collection and constellation of tools, symbolic languages that we amass, and we're using it in a very fluid and free-form way. Well, here we are in Singapore. I have to give you one wonderful example because I promised about some stories. This was so wonderful for me because I was in a room with about 100 educators and professional inventors and so forth. And this is a chemist who was asked to make a symbolic model of his process of practicing chemistry. And so he built this beautiful, elegant model out of very simple materials. And that was an embodiment of what he believed was his creative process at the time. And so in talking to this group, you have people who, as an audience of educators and writers and journalists and so forth, have their own process. But he was reluctant to talk about his model because he said, well, they don't have my knowledge base. They don't share my knowledge base. And when he took us through what he had built, everyone raised their hand and said, that's like my model that I made. That's the way I think about the world. And as he emoted and described it, of course, this kind of explosion of connection and questions. And if you notice the woman on the very bottom here, her enthusiasm, she was an engineer who had built her own company, a software company, and she got up and showed and demonstrated her model. The point being is that we have all these tools that act as a global common language that we can leverage in order to continually apply our insights and understanding. This is at the Smithsonian Institute. This is a set of colleagues, Robert Bernstein and Harvey Seifter, who runs the Art of Science Learning, wonderful organization, another pioneer. These are pioneers that really understand experiential learning. And this is a project Harvey and I did recently, last June actually, where we're working with physicians, we're working with virologists down at the Instituto for Osvaldo Cruz, Fiocruz in Rio de Janeiro, and building an innovation incubator to help them take their intellectual property and help very vulnerable populations in their region. Anyway, they are embodiments. I'm trying to show you examples of embodiments of what I felt were truly human-centered change agents. Here they're building symbolic models of their roadmaps, how they're going to actually take their innovations and execute on them and apply them And again, they're self-facilitating. We're simply guiding. We're providing some basic tools for them to express their ideas and feelings, views, perspectives using ordinary building materials to do so, and of which they build their business plans from. So I just had to give you just a quick a visual there. And we also built software as well over the years, because you can't bring 2,000 people together to have those personal workshops, although we've tried doing that, both hands-on and minds-on workshops. And we just found that there are sets of tools to use. This question may be relevant to the group, and I'd like to pose it and kind of leave it off here with, just give me a couple seconds here. What does human-centered change mean to you personally, as you're working? If you were to build such a model, it should always be facilitated by people, obviously, who know how to facilitate these things and interpret them. As a leader, how do you create human-centered change in your organization? And what are some true stories you can share that demonstrate that change? And furthermore, how do you measure the success of it, to do it? Just as a, kind of a general overview to present. And I'll leave you with just the last couple slides here very quickly. We all know how critical empathy, compassion is. It's almost at the root of it. Well, there's a bounty of information now available in human neuroscience about that, about the processes, how our emotions, our thoughts, feelings, and so forth are actually very much involved at the core of our cognitive, our higher thinking processes. And there are many organizations that are studying this in different ways, from the neuroscience perspective, from genes all the way up to neural nets and modeling it in AI and so forth. And they're also dealing with how we mitigate fear and angst, two huge challenges that we have currently today. And again, I always go back to the neuroscience. If I were to unpack this, I can take you through the neuroscience piece, but in fact, you'll have some of this to refer back to. Anybody wants to contact me, lots of resources to share and connect you with, and the organizations that are really doing brilliant work in this field. I want to leave you with the last couple slides. This is the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And this is permanently displayed there, and I hope you'll see it and go through it and explore it. And it's called The History of Conflict Resolution. Quite appropriate if you go back to all the things we are dealing with. And I've always mentioned that I don't know if you can see my pointer, but to the left of that screen, if we could truly understand one another and share our understanding and apply all of the human-centered change elements, agents, tools that we have available, all of this that cascades very quickly into madness and chaos is something that we could eliminate. And honestly, if we were to get this part up front brilliantly done, and done in a way where we could foster the very things that we have been entrusted to, we would quite literally solve some of the most pressing issues that you saw at that sphere of complex challenges. So I just want to leave these thoughts up here and hope that you will visit this and you'll see the video and how it's made. Yes, I made installations in 1997 that were huge, that you go inside all those pieces of chaos. This is at the Ronald Feldman Fine Arts. And under that 7 tons of wood that looks total chaos is a very calm experience where you go inside this thing, and all those are brain icons, suggesting how our different states of mind are influenced. And paradoxically, when you're sitting, instead of running from the chaos, when you go into it and try to understand it, there's a calmness. It's like being in the eye of a hurricane. It's really an extraordinary experience. This was also set in motion and music by Ornette Coleman and harmonics. Ornette Coleman was this brilliant, astonishing jazz composer, musician, and his harmonics group from that he built. Please look at this and see it and understand where it's coming from. And I'll leave you with this message. We are not what we know. We are what we are willing to learn. And I sure learned from some of these. These, I'm going to end my presentation. You'll see, if you get a chance, look at Closer to Truth by Dr. Kuhn. And that was my mentor at MIT, Dr. Stephen Chorver, and Otto Pina, who ran the Center for Advanced Visual Studies, and, Ronald Feldman, who pioneered and championed my work all these years, was an embodiment of human center, everything he did as a leader and change agent. And you'll see this fellow here standing with the painting, Geoffrey Ozen, who is a pioneer and literally the father of nanochemistry. It's been a delight over 12 years collaborating with him. My wife, Joan Siler, who is my overview master of metaforming and lifelong learning and creating and innovating. And my brother, Eric, here, you'll see another lifelong learner. Metaformers are, for me, what I think human-centered leadership and change is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
So I'm going to drop off this here and stop my presentation. And
wonderful. Let's go into the chaos with Ornette and oh God, I love it.
Yeah.
So Rune, I had to say that. Rune, Todnem By, the trailblazer, he who is mad and epic. Rune, would you be so kind as to share your screen and guide us through what you wish to guide us through today?
Thank you. You can see my screen?
Yes.
Thumbs up.
Fantastic. First of all, I just want to say thanks, Todd. That was fascinating. Brilliant. Thanks for the invitation. I'm going to spend my 15 minutes focusing a little bit about our understanding around leadership. So what do we understand by the word and the terminology, and how much ownership do we feel around it? I have two screens here. Yeah, you don't need that information. That's just for the slide pack when you might want to look back at it afterwards. But what I'll try to look at in my 15 minutes, I'll try to introduce some conceptual thoughts around leadership ontologies. I'll talk a little bit about it, but some relatively new ones. I'm going to look a little bit about what I call the Taylor's leadership lens, and then talk a little bit about what I refer to as being epically mad. And I do think most of us will recognize ourselves in this. But first, I'm gonna undertake some change because I see this lightning bald head. So I'm gonna put on a cap so you focus on what I'm saying and not on this flash. So I'm going to start out with a hypothesis to link then leadership to organizational change, and I'm suggesting that our current mainstream understanding of leadership is both limited and limiting, and therefore hampering our organizational change efforts. This is not to say that leadership is underdeveloped or leadership understanding is wrong or right. I'm just suggesting there is scope for further development. And I did use the word ontologies and leadership ontologies, and I'm then walking in the footsteps of Dratt et al. This article of theirs from 2008 in Leadership Quarterly was absolutely a mind opener to me. So if you haven't read their work on the DAC ontology, I really, really recommend it. I would have liked to read their first draft. I just had this suspicion that their first draft was way more edgy and less kind of diplomatic than what was published, but I might be wrong. But they're basically just suggesting that leadership ontology is the theory of the entities that are thought to be the most basic and essential to any statement about leadership. Because we do make quite a few assumptions about leadership that we have a common understanding. And they refer to what is seen as the tripod ontology, that then consists of the three elements: leader or leaders, followers, and common goals. So it looks like this. When we talk about leadership and when we think about leadership, no matter what kind of theory we refer to, most of us are thinking about leadership is something that leaders do. And it's something they do with and or through followers. So we then create this focus on the relationship between leaders and followers, and the outcome should be then delivery on common goals. But of course, those goals are not always that common or shared. So what Dratt et al. Came up with, and I'm a bit surprised it hasn't been picked up more, because at least I find it mind-blowing, because it really challenges our understanding of leadership. They suggested, let's think about leadership without referring to the words leaders and followers. That's really, really challenging, but let's try that. And I keep arresting myself. It's almost impossible because we have been indoctrinated. But they then suggested, rather than focusing on leaders and followers, can we focus on, they refer to the production of direction, alignment, and commitment. And just by trying to do that opens up a whole different way of exploring leadership and our own role in leadership. But it hasn't really been picked up. This was published in Leadership Quarterly, #1 academic outlet on leadership development. So there's a question to be asked: why are we resisting picking up on these ideas? Because they're not secret, and they are available. So in 2021, I thought I had been introduced to this article by some of my master students. So I've been a professor of leadership without being aware of the work of Dratt et al. How could I be a professor of leadership, I wonder now? And I thought this work of Dratt et al. Has not been given enough attention. So I set out to try to blow some dust off their work, to bring it back into the view of us as academics and practitioners. And I tried to then further develop the D for direction into P for practice, sorry, for purpose. And when we look at our fields of organizational change and leadership, we don't talk a lot about purpose. Why is that? So what is driving us? What are we here to do? And then we have, of course, the lovely work of, Purpose Beyond Profit, which is a great book. So what they suggested, and what then I tried to suggest, rather than focusing on leader, followers, and delivery on goals, common or not, can we focus in our leadership thinking and debate and conversation, can we focus on the production or the facilitation of purpose, alignment, and commitment? And then how can we do this? So I tried to create a kind of a lens. I tried to say, this is a new way. This is a new way of looking at leadership. And someone told me, no, Rune, just call it a lens. Provide a tool for people to use or throw away as they see fit. But I suggested what I call the Telos leadership lens, something to put over our current understanding of leadership, whatever that is. And I hope to add some value to our understanding and our discussion. So I suggest that leadership is the responsibility of the many, not the privilege of the few. So yes, I know that we are way beyond the great man theory, but many of us are still referring to leadership as if we're still there, the great man theory. And then the second element of the lens is kind of my working definition of leadership, suggesting leadership is the collective pursuit of delivering on purpose. So the collective pursuit is something we do together. And we might take different, what's our leadership role? And it's a pursuit. We might never really deliver on it. So if we want to live in a healthy and safe environment, we never finish the delivery of that, do we? But we are involved in the pursuit of. And of course, this definition is worth nothing without purpose. So what is then purpose? But it's up to the individual to define that purpose. I'm not talking about good or bad purpose, but it's up to the individual. And then I have, of course, the normative element suggesting that leadership purpose should be guided by internal goods. So basically, what is good for most? And again, there are no rights and wrongs, but I hope that these questions and this this lens can put some questions in our direction to ponder about. And then I'm not quite sure where it came from, but I delivered a session some years back in the Netherlands, and I was really late in the preparation. I don't know if you recognize yourself. Sometimes we're just running late in preparations of a session. Yeah, I might be the only one. And I thought, yeah, well, I need something catchy to these practitioners. It was a group of public sector. They called them young managers, and young, it was not an age thing. It was about, they were basically just at a management trainee program. And I talked about we need mad leaders. So I focus on leaders as a role, but mad standing for then making a difference. And I'm not suggesting that, you know, come listen to me and then you can make a difference. My starting point is that we are all making a difference. And again, I'm not making the judgment good or bad, but we are all making a difference. It's not just some of us. It's not just formal leaders making a difference. And I refer to good or bad. I think we're all making a difference in good and bad ways. But how often do we think about our responsibility of making a difference? So this is then the mad in the madness. So I talked about this, and I had 20-minute session, and I never had such a long queue of people that wanted to have a conversation afterwards. So I felt that the reference to the abbreviation MAD hit the individuals in their heart and their head. And later on, I found out, you know, I'm not the only one referring to MAD. There's a teachers leadership organization in South Africa. They refer to MAD in the same way. When I lived in the UK, I stayed there for 20 years. I walked past a car with a sticker, Mad Bikers. And that was bikers making a difference. So they were driving around on their Harleys when they were not in their car, raising money to good causes in society. So it's something we can personalize. You know, I can be mad in a different way to the way that you're mad. But then I was challenged to give a little bit more information. So I talked about being epically mad. So I tried to focus on our energy. You know, most of us have one of these. My mom tells me never to charge this at night because things can happen. I always charge this at night. Nothing has happened yet. But it's about, if I've had a good night's sleep, hopefully I wake up and my battery should be 100%. And I have some choices. How do I spend my energy during the day? Do I just complain about those people out there that don't understand what I understand? So it informs choices. It informs also choices. What do I do during the day to charge my batteries? What do I do during the day to help other people charge their batteries? And it could be such simple things like saying good morning, good evening, good night, job well done. I really like that. I didn't know. You've enlightened me. Or thanks for the help, right? So it's this personal thing because we charge our batteries, we gain energy, and we spend energy in different ways. But it's about taking the responsibility for that. Then I already talked about purpose. I'm not the religious person, but I'm really jealous at religious people when it comes to purpose, because I think perhaps religious people think more about purpose and purpose of life than many others. I thought about purpose when I was a Boy Scout because we had to. Then I forgot about purpose, and then I became a dad of little Oliver, that is now not so little anymore. He's 15. But then I thought about my purpose in life as a parent, to look after my son. But my son is not just my son, he's representing this new generation. So what is this purpose? Do we think about purpose at work? And then purpose can become pretty abstract, but I think about purpose, and we need to transfer or translate purpose into core values. What do we do and what don't we do? And then these core values should inform everything we do at work. So our purpose should inform our attitudes and activities and decision making at work, and of course at home. And then it's about identity. So who are we? So when we look at a lot of formal leadership development, for example, all these great MBA programs around, you know, good leadership development programs. I've had a pleasure of delivering on some of them myself, but very often we think afterwards, hey, don't they look a little bit too similar now once they graduated? They came out looking a little bit more different, and now they look very, very similar. The way they dress, the way they talk. So we kind of made a uniform out of people. What do we do with identity? I don't think we changed our identity, but perhaps we put on this uniform for the professional leader role. And I'm not sure that's the best way forward. We need to enable people to be proud of who they are and show who they are. And then is the C for courage. And I don't mean courage as jumping out of an aircraft with or without a parachute. I mean courage to be yourself. I mean courage to ask questions. How many of you have ever been in a meeting and we're talking about something, we're not really quite clear about what we're talking about? Someone are referring, yeah, me too. Thanks, Heather. Thanks for the support. You know, we're referring to some kind of project. You're looking around, or some abbreviation. I used to deliver MBA program for the armed forces in the UK, and the armed forces, they love to talking abbreviations. And I first started with the army, and it took me like 6 months to learn all their abbreviations. I thought, yeah, I know it. I know. I'm part of this gang now. And then the Navy people came in, and they used very similar abbreviations, but it meant something completely different. So if we're in a meeting and we don't know what this abbreviation or this project, how often do we dare to ask, excuse me, what is that? What are we talking about again? What does this abbreviation stand for? Very rarely, because we don't want to look like idiots. And I even been in meetings where there've been, one brave soul that said, oh, excuse me, what was that again? And then you see other people kind of looking at this person, a bit judgmental. Then you find out after the meeting, they didn't know either, right? So it's just the courage to ask. And then it's also the courage to support. So when you don't dare to ask, what is that abbreviation for? And someone else, Heather asks, the best thing I can do then is jump straight. Yeah, I was wondering the same. So it's just the courage to ask questions, to be curious and to support each other. And then it's a tiny word, ally, because I came up, it was mad. And I needed something more, epic. Epic mad, it sounds like something is missing. So ally is like the glue word. But we can make a difference on our own, but imagine the difference we can make together. And together with allies. And allies, I don't mean people that are just like us, to think exactly the same as us. There are people that can be vastly different to us, but we find out there are certain things that we agree about. So perhaps all our kids go to the same school, but we might be voting for different political party. We might go to different churches or temples. We might drive different cars and have different opinions about many things. But we want that school to be the best it could be, the cleanest it could be, and the safest it can be. So we will work together, whatever, all these other things that we might disagree about. So we find allies and deliver together. I'm getting towards my very end here. So what I hope to do in some of my work, I hope to challenge the way we perceive leadership. Because very often we say that leadership is something that leaders do. So we kind of monopolize leadership. We suggest that the rest of us, we need a kick in the backside to get anything done. We don't really know what we're doing here with our life. And for a long time, we've been thinking that we are obsessed with leadership. And we keep on being obsessed with leadership. One point in time, if you were a serious leader, you should have a turtleneck and round glasses, because that was what good leaders would wear and what leaders would look like, okay? Not necessarily yourself. So what I hope to do, and the challenge I'm posting us here, is can we think about leadership not just in the terms of leaders, followers, and delivery on common goals, but as the production or facilitation of purpose, alignment, and commitment. Thank you.
Clap, 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 clap. Thank you, Rune.
Thank you, Rune.
Thank you.
As
good.
we take a moment here to prepare, I invite each of you here to think and reflect on what you've heard so far from Todd and Rune, and prepare to go into our third presenter's presentation and sharing today, Mr. Dave Fearon. He of practice, he of a friend of Nexus for Change, Bowling Green State University, and
yes,
I would invite you again here to introduce yourself and go for what you want to go for, Dave.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Wow, those are two really meaty presentations for us to work with. I was a management educator for 50 years, various colleges and universities. I'm trying to help people think about how to manage in organizations, not just organization management, but how to be in an organization and manage to thrive and grow, or at least not get hurt. So that was a lot of my work for a long time. After I retired 8 years ago, I had the great moment in my life to be reconnected with a management educator, Peter Vaill, who was my teacher for my doctoral program. And Peter and I shared a lot of the values as teachers and writers and thinkers. But one that was constant between us was what happens at the point of action. We have all these great scopes of organizations and global organizations all the way to the universe. But if we're to understand change, for example, which is our focus in this series, we have to look very, 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 very closely right to each individual who together are working on a purpose, seeking alignment, and are committed to making something happen. So that's what I've been doing. I've had a lot of wonderful conversations in the podcast that Peter and I originated, and all sorts of people, great scholars all the way to really great clock fixers, 18-year-old people who can repair antique clocks. And all through these conversations, I'm listening. What is it about their practice or practices that brings so much energy to this conversation that makes me feel optimistic as a conversant with these folks? What is it about practice itself? So I've had the wonderful opportunity to be curious about that probably for the rest of my life, because everywhere, including downstairs in my former living room, are practitioners, carpenters and plumbers and people building me a downstairs bedroom bathroom so that I don't fall downstairs. But as I've watched these men work over the last couple of weeks, they know what they're doing. And I look for, oh, here I go again. I'm taping another wall of sheetrock. So I asked a gentleman who was sheetrocking, taping the sheetrocking when he came in this morning. He said, I've been doing this. I'm 70 and I've been doing this for 45 years. And I go like that. And I said, are you looking forward to taping the sheetrock in my new bathroom? And he said, absolutely. No wall is the same. I have to adjust and, but after I put that second coat on, a couple of days, when you walk in here, you're going to see something like you've never seen before. A wall in your bathroom that looks exactly the way you want it to. That's what I do. And he had a Marine cap on, and I said, you're just like, taking the hill for Fearon's bathroom. And he laughed. So people are very, very special. And what Peter and I put into the book on practice as a way of being is that we are so complex in every moment of our day and even our nights with our brains working, that any assumption or rule or any kind of fixed theory that we make about human behavior should have a huge question mark after it. Just like Todd and Rune's presentations today, big question marks. And here's a couple of reasons. And I have one on the Practice podcast. Someone said, why do you have a question mark after Practice podcast? I said, because I'm curious. I want to know, what is it about practice that brings so much life to people? And the absence of which makes them feel very flat. That's my question. So let me show you a little bit about some of the things that I've invented, and I'm going to continue to invent to reach in this big social media mix of people, what we might call, and I hate the term, average people, ordinary people, just that person downstairs putting up the tape. Let me pop this up for a second. I created this after a while, and I'll tell you why. Hey, you see my calendar? Okay, I think I've got the sound share on. Let me make sure. I set it up earlier, but no, there it is. Okay. It'll only take a minute, because that's what it's called.
We can't hear you, Dave.
Oh, just a minute. Wow, that silly thing. Now I can't stop it. It just keeps playing and playing.
Dave, maybe you want to hit that sound. The
It's
computer's
just too much.
Hey, there we go.
I don't want to do that, nor do I want you to do that. Okay, I'm going to add another minute to your time. Let's try it. Wait a minute. Here's something about your practice and mine. Change. Yeah. We go for change. That's what we call preferred results. But sometimes we go for change and the results not in our favor. At that point, we decide how much more we want to put into going that way and doing those things. We might even give up on a practice we love because it's just too much. I don't want to do that, nor do I want you to do that, because that's our way of being. So if we give up what we love doing because the change is too painful or not in our favor, then we give up on being ourselves. That's a big sacrifice. So what do we do about it? We double our interest in keeping our practices going through it all. That's why it's a practice, because we won't give it up. So I started those wait a minutes a few months back, and and I also write a very thoughtful piece on each of the episodes of the Practice Podcast with 4 or 5 paragraphs, and sometimes people read all those paragraphs. But what I learned was, if you do something in a minute, and you can put a bit of wisdom into a minute, you get much more what we call reactions in the way that LinkedIn counts eyes on the screen. So I was thinking, as I end this, as I will, what difference does it make to know what a person's preferred practices are? And the answer is alignment. Back to Rune. What are we aligning? If I come into a day's work and I am a passionate boat maker, I've had to leave the boat out in the garage, come to work, get through the day, make the money so I can go back to my boat practice, or my painting, or my being a practicing parent. All those things that really come from our lifetime of cultivation of our interests. And everyone does it one way or another. It puts up 1, 2, 3, 5, maybe a dozen spikes, wiggly spikes of these are my practices that really matter to me. Anything in between these fingers also is work that I do, things that I take care of, obligations I meet. But boy, if I'm going to be coming into a change process in my company, I want to have a feeling that somehow or another they know that at least 2 of these are going to be aligned with the changes they're making. Because while you're making a boat, you're learning grafting, you're learning how wood works, you're learning paint, you're learning about how the water lifts a boat to a certain degree. All that you're learning. So if I can show the change manager these people, knowing them well enough so they know what's wiggling and moving. Oh, Bob, this matches your interest in theater, because this is going to give you much more flexibility to be an improvisational actor in the company, because we're going to leave the script away from customer service for a few days and see how it works. Just speak your mind, speak your heart, and on it goes. So it sounds like a lot more work in a way to have to align with 100 or 1,000 people to their wiggly practices. But if you miss altogether, and any one or two, you've got some people who are going, oh, not another practice, not another change. I mean, not another change. Oh, instead of, hey, I can use this. I can use this to develop my way of being. And that's my presentation. So thanks, folks.
Thank you, Dave. Wow, it's a lot from three very, very, again, illustrious and erudite presenters.
There you
So,
go.
yeah, so if we take a moment to breathe and reflect, I invite you all to engage in conversation together. And Heather, our producer today, is going to open up some Zoom rooms and invite you all into 3 or 4 person conversations where you can consider a question that you want to come back to the room with, or an appreciation, and mostly to go into a room and get to know each other and be with each other's practice, and then come back out with some inquiry. So Heather, it looks like you're already sending people into the rooms. Fantastic. And wait for you to come back.
We three are in our own room.
Yeah, we get to stay in the main room. We get to breathe through. Again,
really
another breathing moment. Todd, please.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your presentations. Rune, when I was thinking of your MAD, about Helen Caldicott's MAD, mutual assured destruction, and I was thinking about that because I was so involved with that work in the 80s and stuff, and she was trying to make a difference. And then if I segue over to what Dave's presentation was about too, I think of how valuable it is to really think of the programs that are out there. Like there's one at MIT, I just have to tell you, they finished it. It's called Campaign to Make a Better World. And when you see that and you see the richness of, it made me hope-optimistic, what I call hope-optimistic. Hope optimism, that was my word, because I saw these groups and people from working all over the world actually doing that, working collaboratively, embodying the very things that we're talking about today. So it's something, if you have a chance, go look at it and see what their campaign was about. But it is about what we are dealing with, and thank goodness. So anyway, I'll be quiet.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Heather, David and Catherine, are they not in breakout groups? If you look at the bottom.
Got kicked out of room 7, I think. I don't know how that happened.
We're working on it. 1 second.
Okay, good, because they're two wonderful people. I don't want to be missed.
And it's not as if you're not welcome here.
Yeah, join us. Come on in.
Please.
Be a fly on the
with
wall.
this. Rune, Dave, what would you like to reflect on or
I
ask?
want to say that my whole, really, honestly, from maybe Boy Scouts and the YMCA on in my life, I've been wondering about leadership. And I've known somehow that it's not just someone with the right suit and good hair. I've always maybe been a little bit of an anti-authoritarian because I saw people misusing the power of authority and used to really bug the hell out of me because I could see where I loved being, which was at ground zero with people, grassroots, you name whatever we call them. I always loved feeling that force of collective energy. It was amazing. You throw something out and say, "What can you make of it?" Like you do, Todd. And my God, they make it. They make some miraculous stuff. So why we're still looking for the right haircut? Oh, God, I just thought of Donald Trump. Oh, please.
He's not the
we
only
really
one.
should be
Go down that path.
we really should be we really should be looking at individuals and getting at least a clue as to what is their what I call the wiggly strength, the thing that they align themselves with before we align them to a larger purpose. What's your thought on that, Rune? Because I was stealing your
Yeah, no, I think
purpose,
again,
alignment, and commitment.
yeah, no. I think it's good that we draw on each other's deliveries. I think it was really nice this because we are three different individuals coming from kind of three different, if not different directions, at least we have different experiences that we're drawing on. I think we all are drawing on the importance of the individual. I think
Yes.
we're all referring to some sort of creativity. And then it's really sad that creativity is something of the first to go when we're looking at how to make more efficient, higher education.
Oh,
Languages out, creativity out, it's a luxury when perhaps we need to spend more time on developing creativity. And for example, one of the tools I saw some of the work that you shared, Todd, is really amazing. I do something when I do some classes at the master's level, and rather than people saying what they think leadership is, I ask them to, for example, draw it and then talk to it, because people talk very differently to a drawing and I give them instructions. I say, don't give me an organizational map, draw like a child.
Right.
And then they go, oh, I'm not very good at drawing. Always someone. And then they draw. And then they tell stories. And then you see the individuals behind the suit.
Absolutely.
So I think it's really brilliant to hear your different, theories and experiences and ideas. And I think a major battle that we have or challenge we have in front of us is to because there's a lot of people who want this kind of development and education to be different, to have different sorts of leaders and different understanding of leadership. But we need to break into the core. We can't afford being in the periphery. Yeah, we have some crazy people out here that thinks differently. I think we need to challenge the mainstream thinking and developing of leaders and leadership, both for the individuals and for the society.
Rune, can I quickly jump in and respond? I used to do for the Denver Rocky Mountain News these things called truisms. They were my evidence-based truths, like Einstein said, truth is what stands the test of experience. They were my experiences, but they weren't meant to be. They were put out there with a picture and a statement, a picture statement and a statement, such as knowledge is understanding your mistakes, wisdom is learning from them. We're brilliant at learning, but we don't learn from them. We make the same mistakes. And it had a little drawing of that anybody could relate to. So I would always revert to making these truisms that were just saying, hey, have you experienced this kind of truth? This is what is yours? Give me an example. Show me, that kind of thing.
I've got one right on that, and it's different. and it's from one of my favorite guys. The favorite quote I had is from Frank Zappa. And I think it is, information is not knowledge. Knowledge is not truth. Truth is not beauty. Beauty is not love. Love is not music. Music is the best. And so that when I hear this and when I see this, what does leadership look like too? And what does it feel like? What does it sound like? What is the music of our being together? This is our quartet. We're doing a little bit of free jazz kind of here, like Cornette would do. And I think that's what is that spirit of leadership, that what really matters is what's between us and
right.
How
and Dave intimated that with the improvisational piece that I love. And when you watch that level of mastery, I mean, what's so interesting, and part of my metaphoring process grew when we would be inventing technology and you'd have specialists in fields, and I would say, look, show me how this system works. Don't just tell me. And that
Yeah.
way they would build something. They'd all have their hands, in the process, and they could say, oh, you can't read somebody's mind. But when they show you in a tangible way and they have a story or music or something to layer it with, it becomes a global common language, regardless of whether they speak your language or not. You're seeing it and it's embodied in that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really think that the four of us will never ever have a bored moment of, oh God, another, because one thing connects with another, but every conversation that we get into, it just reveals so much more. And Peter would say, we can't make too many generalizations about what a practice is because it's different in every person. And I said, well, how do you find out what their practice is? And he said, have a conversation.
Absolutely.
Which led to the podcast and other things, but have a conversation before I run upstairs, with the guy who's going to take my wall. Have a conversation. And so everyone has a form. Each of you guys have your way, and Brian has music. I have found that my medium for research, if you want to call it with a small r, is conversation. Chewing the fat, as we used to say in Maine. You have wonderful art. You have wonderful art. Mine is conversation. And allegedly Ryan's interested in music. I keep hearing that.
I have to. I keep tons of books around that I'm reading.
Okay.
This one by Robert Thomas is so good, and it's about practice. It's about.
Oh, great!
I'm going to hold it up there for you to see.
I'm making a mental snapshot right now.
Yeah, it's absolutely superb, and it's
what's the subtitle?
These principles we go through here. I'll hold it up.
How to lead from experience.
Robert Thomas, brilliant book and wonderful examples, and just takes you into the fold, as an example of one that I'm looking at and reading at the moment. But there are tons, and I'm sure we could share our lists of those stimuluses and those resources, like I was mentioning about that campaign to build a better world. Just opens the vistas for you.
Rune, can we ever go to the core you're talking about, though, hearing Todd? Can we ever get to that core of the higher ed hemography, this huge industrial complex worldwide called colleges and universities now, and all of the online externals of that? It all seems to keep colliding in business schools, at least, back to something that you can count. Money.
Yes.
Things always count. And
we have people coming back here in a moment. I don't want to say. I want to come to
save that answer.
I'll
follow up with you guys. We'll have some fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we can have some fun about that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, I so want to talk with each of you more.
As they say.
So Rune, you're talking about the core. I think the power's in the periphery. In this sphere, so I think this is very interesting. So
I like to flip the periphery to the internal, and then we can really have some change.
and we're learning this language together and learning each other's way, each other's instrument, and each other's music as we are here today. Yeah. So, I thought people. Well, I know people are coming back. Maybe I think they're reluctant to leave. They're wonderful.
Oh, I know. I love the breakouts in all these years. Thank God for Zoom. I love being in the breakouts, and when it's over, it's like a tiny loss.
Yeah. Hey, when it's over, it's over. Whatever happens is the only thing that could have happened, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Welcome, all of you squares popping onto my screen. You're not square, you're spherical. You're organisms. Welcome back. As we arrive again into this place, let's take a breath. reflect on what has happened in your rooms and in the rooms where we were in together. And if you would, I invite you to put your questions in the chat. I think some of you have done that already. Or if you'd like to speak with the room, raise your hand using the React button in Zoom at the bottom of your screen. And know that you will be able to access a video of this on the Nexus for Change YouTube channel, as well as the presentation and video through the link you got to this event through. You go back through Zoom, you register, you look at the change presentation that's there. So, Heather, what do we have in the comments? Do we have questions there? Yes, you will get slides, Carol. I promise. Is there a hand up anywhere?
You stunned them.
Okay, so if we can start this. Dave, you and Rune were talking. We had a question back and forth. I figure maybe that will spur an inquiry. And again, everyone in the room, you're invited to raise your hand, put something in the chat. We'll bring you on stage, and you can jam with.
I start with Maximilian, though. He had his hand up.
Oh, I didn't see it. It didn't come
I don't know how to raise the hand. I somehow don't find the button here, but I'd like to say something. For one, we had a very nice chat together, and I think all the presentation had a little bit of a different perspective to just how we come here and create, right? And so we focused a lot on the first presentation by Todd, and just that creating through art, a way to really for people to probably communicate, come together, share, and even finding then places and pictures and visions that are maybe sometimes hidden on themselves as well is a very nice start of getting a community built, get connections built. So that was one point.
Thank you. Yes. And there are so many tools that we have to use, to your point, to build on and grow from. That's what's so fantastic, and to be able to fluidly do that.
Oh, Francis, you're on mute. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Okay, I don't know how to raise my hand suddenly. It doesn't work. So my question, actually, will go to all the speakers, but especially to Todd. I was really fascinated by your presentation. And the question that comes to my mind is, if all of us have that genius potential in us, what is it that gives some more than others? The will, that directed energy to act on your genius in any way? It's not just going to the moon, someone said. What is it that gives us the will to act upon that genius in us?
That is such a great question, and it's so important. There are many, many people who, and I identified some like Buckminster Fuller, if you read anything about him, really a wonderful mind. And he said, we're all born geniuses, but we spend our formative years de-geniusizing ourselves. Yeah. And that happens literally in elementary school. You see, all the kids are just so creative. If you give them a challenge, they express it in a multitude of ways. But then by the time they hit middle school, they're taught that a stick is a piece of wood and it has these kinds of properties to it, and the freedom that they have to wonder about the world themselves, about the connections between the things that they see, that gets almost riddled out of them very, very quickly. And so the key thing, and it starts early, it starts at home, it starts in our schools very early on, to help children express and experience their own sense of inquiry, creativity and inquiry, and to allow them the freedom to do that. And they'll discover, it's like you ask a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old, give me examples of genius thinking, of absolutely, SpongeBob SquarePants. They'll give you a whole litany of things that they see and read all around them, but they weren't ever so that's like, and there's any information to build on that and address that very question.
Rune and I were talking at the end of our conversation about the ultimate squeeze box that pushes minds in and then graduates them with MBAs or undergraduate business degrees. And our lament is that over the years of condensing and taking people away from their own energy of practices, and we say, okay, now you got to give that up. Well, you can't go over and take a course in the art school, of course not. But theater, you're going to go out for theater? No, you have 5 prerequisites in accounting and math before you can even enter our doors. So we keep squeezing, and then we expect these people to pop out and celebrate our creativity and lead change and visualize a better world. I don't know, Rune, what's your thought?
It seems like we've created a status quo that a lot of us are happy with. So we just we talk a lot about change, but a lot of the people that talk about change are actually talking, they mean the opposite. I don't know about you, but I see a lot of people in different roles that talk about it's so important with creativity, it's so important with change, innovation, transformation, and very often it's the very same roles preventing it from happening. And then what can we put in place to support people being more innovative? Well, why did we stop them to start with? Right, so the story from Todd about kids, we are chopping off arms and legs. You don't want these arms and legs. You need to look like everyone else and think like everyone else.
We have a question here too. So, all right, Dan, if you want to come and speak your question, I can speak it for you if you like.
Yeah, just go ahead.
All right. So Dan's question: what is a practice each of you utilize for accessing more of yourself, and suggest for helping others experience and tolerate, develop, and utilize themselves as never before? 2 come to mind for me, such as unburdening with what lingers and emotional calisthenics. What else?
It's going to be what you love doing. connected to other things. So yeah, a practice of freestanding, but if you can help a person see the connection between other things they love doing, then they feel more of that shared energy. How do you have that?
Yeah, I just want to build on these questions and to address yours too, Dave, because you're spot on. This is, if my recommendation, always look at the history of art, and I mean this going all the way back. It has set the groundwork, and it answers Francis' question. It sets the groundwork for how art has absolutely informed, shaped the whole enterprise of science, engineering, technology, math. And I cannot emphasize it enough that if you study that and you absorb that, you'll see all the connection-making tools. You'll see every kind of thing in this integration of all these different fields, almost going back to what Bucky Fuller said. Start with the universe, and any subcategorization of it is arbitrary. And so, in a way, you see this and as you read it. So I would always, as a practice, look at the history of art and see its connections with economics, with absolutely every field. It is the soil that grew all of these seedlings and seeds and domains of knowledge that we use. And start early with kids, encourage them to look at and introduce them to the practices and information in them, and that fosters their curiosity, their sense of wonderment in a beautiful way.
I think two of them, in my tools, I have these. One is to work by United Nations and Leading Miller about futures literacy and futures literacy labs. Just thinking that the future hasn't happened yet. We're all part of shaping the future. We shouldn't let someone else do that for us. We need to take that shared ownership and responsibility. I think that's exciting. And then another thing that I'm really curious and still very much in love with is what's called the double diamond from design thinking. Because don't just jump into solution mode. Be creative with other people that are very different to yourself. To go into a mode of defining the problem together. Very jump on not what's the core problem, but it's a symptom of the problem. And then if you're really serious about spending more time defining the problem, then you really need to be inclusive of diversity. The most important diversity in this example is what's up here, the way diverse in our thinking was. But we need to train for that because we're not very good at giving critical and good feedback to others, and we're not good at receiving it either. Very often take as personal critique if someone has something to add to what you said. So yeah, future literacy and the double diamond from design thinking.
If there's someone in the peanut gallery who wants to bring her, but I want to add a question against what Rune said. Okay, so we're talking about how we're showing up here and what we wish to have happen with presenters and change practitioners. And Steve Cady, one of our hosts, brought in the AI imperative, what that means for us as humans. I'm wondering what you think about what is the educational imperative and how might that shift happen, and what are some prescriptions or indications that you have for how the education of management and practitioners may change? Todd,
Yeah, just quickly. AI is absolutely part of whatever is going to be unfolding. It's not, we can't, I hope people understand that it's ubiquitous now at this point, and it's a steamroller, I have to say. It's infiltrated every kind of system we know and will continue to. I'll send you an article very soon about things, but it's just a proliferation you can't ignore. You can't say, well, we're going to unplug it and be done with it and so forth. So children are going to learn it. And also we're living in an ADHD culture now, world culture, where we're just pulled in every direction imaginable. So there are some core learning skills and creative skills and things we can develop and foster that can be used with all of it. But and skepticism and critical thinking are critical, because without it, we could end up not having educated policies or educated people. And there are all kinds of issues that go on with that are so instrumental, because that can fall into other challenges that are really tough to get out of. But anything that allows you, some of the things and processes we're talking about today will allow you both hands-on and minds-on to even use some of those technologies that are unavoidable, but also have the kinds of conversations we're trying to foster here.
I just want to look at the cash flow here for a moment, coming out of business school. It seems to me that building are all flying in to the makers of the artificial intelligence and all the energies and things it takes to run it. The money's going that way. And I'm looking at schools and colleges and universities and training programs and humanities programs and liberal arts colleges, and I'm not seeing the money flow in there too. So we do have a cause. We have to be able to explain again and again that this human intelligence that's not replaced but augmented by artificial intelligence, and that intelligence is grown in a myriad of ways, but we can at least have some ownership of how intelligence is developed in schools, colleges, universities, training centers, and so on. The money's not going away, folks, and there are so many small colleges in this country that are closing. There are whole humanities departments and in all the soft departments that are being sliced out of schools, and the big thing these days is data analytics. I can't think of a more. I mean, if you can tell good stories from data, great. But the human intelligence aspect is being demoted. That's my point of view. Anyone who would like to argue with me, I'll accept your argument with appreciation.
Yeah, I think AI is making the soft skills even more important.
Absolutely.
So for example, that we can be better at working together with conflict resolution, so on, like the painting, the art that I showed at the end of your presentation. If two people solve it before it turns into a global war, right? We're not very good at generalizing. We're not very good at talking together, talking about silos or interests areas, and we need to become better. And that's also this creative part of the brain. We shouldn't shut these departments down. We really need to fund them better.
Absolutely. Philosophers.
I'm sorry, I saw Francis come off mute, and I wanted to again invite you into the discussion here.
So the way that I thought about this after hearing Steve's presentation, and it's the same thing that others are saying, we can focus on the skills that AI can never develop. So that's the critical thinking things like. And I think there are skills that we focus on for a long time, but I wonder if we don't need to, number one, go deeper into those skills, but also use AI to help us develop those skills. So we need to not compete, think that we have to compete because we can't compete, but how do we do better the things that AI will never be able to do? Yeah. Of course, Dave, everything that's going on right now helps us face what is the reality. So when you talked about the money, this eclipses any ideas that I had, because without the money, we can't do it. Thanks for that reality. Yeah.
Well, there's money going into it somewhere. Maybe in other parts of the world. In this country, it's going to be a lean time, I think, for schooling. But
Todd, want to jump in?
Dave's point about the market-driven dimension of it is when you have a pretender like Sam Altman who is trying to raise, and he will get it, $7 trillion for a chip that can be used, in a very, very powerful way. You have these companies and groups that are incentivized by these kinds of things, and a lot of the energy that goes into imagine a face-off now that's happening between human intelligences and machine intelligences. And that, in fact, that I won't bore you with the details, but there are whole groups of people from all fields, from bioengineering to neuroscience, that are trying to literally imbue these systems with many of the nuanced abilities that we have, including inference, including intuition, including be able to, if you can believe it, I know we giggle at it, but I can tell you, if Marvin Minsky, who is one of the progenitors of these things, were to look at where we are in the state of human-machine intelligence now, your eyes would roll. And it is so accelerated, and it's so important that people really understand and examine their own humanity, humanness, and what that whole technological dimension is. It's quite real, and it's quite present. And I think anything we can do to instill and get kids early on to really embrace their uniqueness and discover that and understand the purpose piece that Rune was also talking about is going to be a big plus. But we need to learn to collaborate, not compete, to your point, because I'm afraid the competition piece is going to be really stiff moving forward. As optimistic as I am.
Rune, you had a
Yeah, good call. I just saw a wonderful movie. I was just late. I had never heard about it. It was made in 2016. It's called Hidden Figures. It's on Netflix. So black women at NASA, and the job they did. And some of their work roles, they were called computers.
Yes.
And then IBM, they were going to be replaced, but they were not replaced. It's just their level of skills and importance just notched up a few levels. So they did not compute with IBM, but they were still there doing really, really important work. An amazing movie if you haven't seen it. Love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, wonderful. We could go on for another couple hours, I think. Everyone in the room would probably be up for that. As we approach the bottom of the hour, I would invite, there's one more question from the crowd, if there's one there. Let's see if there's that. Do we have one? Okay, no. Well, I would like to invite our esteemed musicians here in the room to bring forth. Is there anything that you wanted to bring forth today, or that you've received today that you've not had a chance yet to receive? If any of you want to bring your final notes into this show.
Look very, very, very closely at people before we call them a workforce or a company, a team. Look closer and closer still, because there's the genius. There's the young Todd Siler. There's the genius.
True. I think if we could just get everyone to think about their own creative process, start with that, how they approach not just problem posing, and seeing how they use the tools and knowledge and modes of expression that you do every day. And I think that's the starting point. It's getting to that self-discovery, that self-learning. It's so valuable, and that can make such a difference in literally kids' lives from all ages, all spectrums. That insatiable curiosity, like all this Huxley said, right? The secret of genius is to carry the spirit of the child throughout your entire life. To be a lifelong learner. So
amazing. Rune, do you want to play us out? Or let me talk to everyone about our sponsors.
Well, all I can say is strong these wise words. We just have to go on being mad together. I think that will help us all.
Yes.
Collective madness. Yes. Claps everybody. Thanks to each of you, Dave, Todd, Rune. Thanks to everyone here in the room, and certainly thanks to our sponsors, Nexus for Change, the Schmidt-Horst College of Business at Bowling Green State University, and certainly to the Doctorate of OD and Change program at BGSU, as well as all the lovely programs at BG Forward Falcon. So until next time, be well, and thank you for the precious gifts of your time.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Hi guys. Thank you.
You're all